I'm Mason Reynolds, 34, software engineer and apparently my sister Rebecca's personal unpaid nanny for her twins Lily and Jacob, plus baby Sophia. It started with occasional favors because, hey, what are brothers for? But over time, those quick favors turned into all-day affairs, then multiple days per week. My career was suffering, my girlfriend was frustrated, and Rebecca just kept asking for more. Finally, I decided to show my sister exactly how much her free childcare was costing me. The look on her face was absolutely priceless. Before I jump into this wild story, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from, and hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever had a family member who thought your time was less valuable than theirs. Rebecca and I grew up in a cozy middle-class suburb outside Boston. Despite being 2 years older than me, we were always close. We shared friends, defended each other against neighborhood bullies, and were each other's confidants through our parents' occasional marital rough patches. When she left for college, I felt the absence keenly, but we stayed connected with weekly phone calls and holiday reunions. After graduating with my computer science degree, I bounced between a few startups before landing my current position as a senior developer for TechStream Solutions. The job pays well and lets me work remotely, which I love. I've set up a productive home office in my 2-bedroom apartment, complete with dual monitors, ergonomic chair, and the peace and quiet I need to write complex code. Rebecca followed a different path. She met Greg during her final year of college, and they married shortly after graduation. He pursued a career in hospital administration while she worked in marketing until the twins came along 5 years ago. Lily and Jacob were a handful from the start, energetic, curious, and constantly in motion. Rebecca decided to put her career on pause to focus on raising them, planning to return to work once they started kindergarten. Then came the surprise pregnancy with Sophia. No one expected Rebecca to have a third child, least of all Rebecca herself. Greg's career was taking off, but his new position as Assistant Director of Operations at Boston Memorial meant even longer hours. The hospital was perpetually short-staffed, and he was often called in to handle crises, sometimes working 70-hour weeks. The first time Rebecca asked me to babysit was innocent enough. It was about 3 months after Sophia was born, and Rebecca had a dentist appointment she couldn't reschedule. "It would just be for 2 hours, Mason," she'd pleaded over the phone. "Greg's in budget meetings all day, Mom and Dad are in Florida, and I haven't been to the dentist in over a year. Please?" Of course I agreed. I adored my nieces and nephew, and 2 hours was nothing. I could easily work around that brief interruption. That first babysitting session went smoothly. The twins were entertained with coloring books and educational tablet games I'd downloaded specifically for them. Sophia slept most of the time in the portable bassinet Rebecca had brought over. My sister returned exactly when she promised, looking refreshed and bearing a coffee and pastry from my favorite bakery as a thank you. "You're a lifesaver, Mason," she'd said sincerely. "I promise I won't make this a habit." For the next month or so, Rebecca kept her word. She'd ask occasionally if I could watch the kids, always with plenty of notice, always with a specific time frame, and always with sincere gratitude afterward. Sometimes she'd bring dinner, other times a 6-pack of my favorite craft beer or a gift card to the bookstore I frequented. My girlfriend Taylor was supportive of these family obligations. She worked as a physical therapist at a sports rehabilitation center and understood the importance of family bonds. She even joined me sometimes when the kids visited, bringing her energy and creativity to our activities. "You're so good with them," she'd observed after one particularly successful afternoon of baking cookies with the twins while I gently rocked Sophia. "You'll make an amazing dad someday." I appreciated Taylor's support and enjoyed the glimpse into potential parenthood that babysitting provided. The kids were genuinely fun to be around in those early days. Lily loved books and would sit beside me, reading, her picture books aloud with dramatic voices. Jacob was fascinated by how things worked and would ask endless questions about my computer setup. And baby Sophia had the most contagious giggle I'd ever heard. The subtle shift in Rebecca's behavior was so gradual I'd barely noticed it happening. First, she started staying out slightly longer than agreed, returning 30 minutes late with breathless apologies about traffic or errands taking longer than expected. Then she began dropping off the kids with minimal supplies, forgetting important items like Sophia's favorite pacifier or Jacob's allergy medication. I made accommodations, buying duplicates of essential items to keep at my apartment: diapers, wipes, children's Tylenol, snacks, even a few toys and books. I didn't mind the expense or the incremental changes to my living space. After all, these were small sacrifices to help my sister during what was clearly a stressful time in her life. In retrospect, I should have noticed the warning signs. But family dynamics have a way of normalizing gradually escalating impositions, especially when you genuinely care about the people involved. 6 months after that first dentist appointment, I was babysitting the kids at least twice a week, often with less than 24 hours' notice. Rebecca had developed a pattern of calling with emergencies that required immediate childcare. "Mason, I just got a call from my doctor. They had a cancellation and can fit me in for my annual checkup today. Can you take the kids for a few hours? Or, the plumber can finally come fix our bathroom sink, but only if I'm home between 1 and 5 today. Could you possibly watch the kids?" I almost always said yes, rearranging my work schedule to accommodate these last-minute requests. Sometimes I'd work late into the night to make up for lost productivity during the day. Other times I'd wake up at 5 a.m. to get a couple of hours of focused work before the kids arrived. The real wake-up call came during an important virtual meeting with key stakeholders. I was presenting a new feature I'd spent weeks developing, sharing my screen with our product team, 2 C-level executives, and representatives from our biggest client. 15 minutes into my presentation, my doorbell rang repeatedly, followed by insistent knocking. "Excuse me for just a moment," I said professionally, muting my microphone and hurrying to the door. There stood Rebecca with all 3 kids, already pushing past me into the apartment. "Thank God you're home," she said, depositing diaper bags and toy sacks in my living room. "There's been a gas leak at the daycare center, so they sent everyone home, and I have this crucial meeting with a potential client in 30 minutes across town." "Rebecca, I'm in the middle of an important presentation right now," I whispered urgently, gesturing toward my computer where the meeting was still in progress. "It's just for a couple hours, Mason. The twins can watch TV, and Sophia just ate, so she'll probably nap. You can do your computer stuff at the same time." Before I could protest further, she was out the door with a hurried, "Thanks, you're the best. I'll text you when I'm on my way back." I returned to my computer, unmuted myself, and tried to continue professionally while 5-year-old twins explored my apartment and baby Sophia began fussing in her carrier. Needless to say, the presentation was a disaster. I lost my train of thought repeatedly, the client representatives looked annoyed at the background noise, and my boss Patrick's expression grew increasingly concerned. After the meeting, Patrick called me privately. "Mason, is everything okay? That wasn't like you at all." I explained the situation, trying to sound professional rather than frustrated. "I understand family emergencies happen," Patrick said carefully, "but this seems to be becoming a pattern. Your productivity has dipped over the past quarter, and you've missed 2 deadlines in the past month. We value your work, but we need reliability." That evening, Taylor and I had our first serious argument about the babysitting situation. "This is the 3rd date night we've had to cancel this month," she said, trying to keep her voice level. "I understand helping out occasionally, but Mason, your sister is taking advantage of you. She's just going through a rough patch." I defended weakly. "The kids are a handful, and Greg's never home. And that's somehow your responsibility to fix? You're not their parent. You have your own life, your own relationship, your own career that's now at risk." I knew Taylor was right, but I felt trapped by obligation and guilt. Meanwhile, Rebecca's requests continued to escalate. She began asking me to pick the twins up from kindergarten 2 or 3 afternoons a week because it conflicted with Sophia's nap schedule. She'd drop all 3 kids off early in the morning because she had appointments, then return hours later with fresh highlights or a new manicure. Most frustrating were her comments that minimized my work. "It must be nice to just sit at a computer all day. At least you can work in your pajamas. It's not like you have real deadlines like in the corporate world." Each remark stung, revealing how little she valued or understood my career. I started keeping track of how much time I was spending on childcare versus actual work. The numbers were alarming. I was watching the kids 15 to 20 hours weekly, essentially a part-time job on top of my full-time position. My apartment gradually transformed from a clean, organized adult space to something resembling a daycare center. Baby gates appeared at the stairs. Cabinet locks were installed in my kitchen. Toys accumulated in every corner. I purchased a changing table for my guest bathroom and converted the closet to store diapers and wipes. The children's behavior changed too. Initially well-behaved during their visits, they grew comfortable enough to show their challenging sides. The twins fought constantly over toys, television shows, and my attention. They began testing boundaries, knowing their mother wasn't around to discipline them. Sophia, now mobile and curious, required constant supervision to prevent injuries or destroyed property. One evening, I tried gently establishing some boundaries with Rebecca. "I love the kids, but I need more notice before you bring them over. My job requires focused concentration." "Oh, come on, Mason," she replied dismissively. "Your job is so flexible. My schedule is completely unpredictable with 3 kids. You're so much better with them than anyone else. They ask for Uncle Mason constantly. Would you really deny them time with their favorite uncle?" Her masterful guilt trip left me speechless and resentful but still unable to enforce any real boundaries. Meanwhile, Greg seemed entirely unaware of how often the children were with me. The few times he picked them up from my place, he acted surprised to find them there. "Thanks for helping out today," he'd say. "Rebecca mentioned you watched them occasionally. It's really great of you." Occasionally? I was watching his children more hours per week than many part-time nannies. But I never corrected him, assuming Rebecca had her reasons for downplaying my involvement. By month 8 of this arrangement, the consequences of my unpaid childcare duties were becoming impossible to ignore. TechStream had landed a major new client, and our team was racing to complete a crucial integration by the end of the quarter. As senior developer, I was responsible for the authentication system, a complex piece of architecture that required deep focus and attention to security details. The deadline loomed just 3 weeks away when Patrick scheduled a one-on-one meeting with me. His normally friendly demeanor was replaced by serious concern as we sat in the virtual meeting room. "Mason, I've always valued your contributions to the team," he began. "But I need to be straightforward with you. Your performance over the past quarter has been inconsistent at best. Code reviews are finding more bugs in your submissions, you've missed 3 team meetings in the past month, and you're falling behind on the authentication system, which is a critical path item." My stomach sank as he continued. "I'm putting you on a performance improvement plan effective immediately. You have 30 days to demonstrate consistent attendance, timely completion of tasks, and code that meets our quality standards. If we don't see significant improvement, we'll need to reevaluate your position with the company." A performance improvement plan, essentially the last step before termination. In my 8-year career, I'd never received anything but positive reviews. Now my job was genuinely at risk. That same week, Taylor's patience finally ran out. We had planned a weekend getaway to celebrate our 1-year anniversary, a cabin in the mountains, hiking trails, and a reservation at an exclusive restaurant that had required booking months in advance. 2 days before our departure, Rebecca called with what she claimed was a real emergency. "Greg's hospital is short-staffed, and they've mandated all administrators attend a 3-day crisis management retreat. It starts tomorrow. I have no one else who can take the kids. Rebecca, Taylor, and I have our anniversary trip this weekend. We've had it planned for months. I told you about it weeks ago. I know, and I'm really sorry, but this is completely out of my control. Greg will lose his job if he doesn't go, and I can't handle all 3 kids alone for 3 days straight. I'm desperate, Mason. Please. Against my better judgment and Taylor's explicit wishes, I canceled our anniversary plans, losing the deposit on the cabin and restaurant reservation. Taylor was devastated. This is the last straw, she said, voice shaking with anger and hurt. I understand family obligations, Mason, but this is destroying our relationship. You're allowing Rebecca to manipulate you at the expense of everything else in your life. What was I supposed to do? I asked defensively. Let her struggle alone with 3 kids for 3 days? Yes, Taylor exclaimed. Or she could hire a babysitter. Or ask her friends. Or her in-laws. There are options besides destroying our relationship and your career. She paused, gathering her composure. I love you, Mason, but I can't keep competing with your sister for priority in your life. Something has to change, or we're done. The weekend was even worse than anticipated. Rebecca dropped the kids off Friday morning with minimal supplies and vague instructions. Within hours, it became apparent that Sophia was coming down with an ear infection. She cried inconsolably through the night, spiking a fever that required constant monitoring. The twins, perhaps sensing the stress, behaved terribly, fighting, breaking one of my gaming controllers, and spilling juice on my laptop. I texted Rebecca multiple times about Sophia's condition but received only brief, unhelpful responses. Just give her children's Tylenol, and she'll be fine. She gets fussy sometimes. By Sunday evening, I was a sleep-deprived zombie who had barely managed to keep 3 children alive, much less make any progress on my critical work project. When Rebecca and Greg finally returned, not from a mandatory crisis retreat, but from what Greg cheerfully described as a couple's spa weekend at an expensive resort, I was too exhausted to even confront the lie. Instead, I watched in disbelief as Rebecca casually collected her children and their belongings, offering only a breezy, "Thanks so much, bro. The kids are always so happy after time with you," before leaving me with my destroyed apartment and looming work deadline. That night, I calculated the financial impact of this situation. If I lost my job due to performance issues, I'd be losing my $120,000 annual salary plus benefits. Even a conservative estimate of childcare for 3 children, including an infant in our area, was $25 to $35 per hour. The math was staggering, and the realization struck me hard. This wasn't just about inconvenience. My sister's free childcare was threatening my livelihood and my relationship. Something had to change. Immediately. The next morning, I called in sick to work, something I rarely did, and began researching childcare costs in earnest. I contacted several nanny agencies, daycare centers, and babysitting services to get accurate rates for watching 3 children of different ages. The numbers confirmed my initial research. Professional care for 2 5-year-olds and an infant range from $25 to $35 per hour, with higher rates for last-minute requests, overnight care, and weekends. Many services charged extra for multiple children, especially with an infant involved. Next, I called my friend Derek, who worked in business management and had experience with difficult client relationships, which, I was beginning to realize, was essentially what I had with Rebecca. You need to approach this like a business problem, Derek advised over coffee that afternoon. Document everything, calculate your costs, and present the data objectively. Emotional arguments won't work with someone who's been ignoring your feelings for months. Derek helped me create a detailed spreadsheet to track all aspects of my childcare services. We set up categories for hours worked, broken down by day of week and time of day. We added columns for additional services provided, meals prepared, educational activities, transportation to and from school or activities, overnight care, and care during illness. I went through my text messages, email, and calendar to reconstruct the past 4 months of childcare I'd provided. The total was shocking, over 350 hours, which at professional rates would have cost Rebecca between $8,750 and $12,250. Now calculate your opportunity cost, Derek suggested. How many billable hours have you lost? What's the financial impact of potentially losing your job? What's the emotional cost to your relationship with Taylor? Those numbers were harder to quantify but even more alarming. I'd missed enough work hours to complete at least 2 freelance projects I'd turned down. The performance improvement plan put approximately $30,000 of my annual income at immediate risk. And the potential cost of losing Taylor was immeasurable. Next, I reached out to my friend Alicia, who had gone through a similar situation with her brother constantly asking for free graphic design work. The hardest part is that they don't see it as taking advantage, she explained. In their minds, family helps family, and your time is somehow less valuable than theirs. You need to make the invisible visible. Alicia suggested documenting not just the hours but the actual work involved, photos of messes cleaned, meals prepared, activities organized. Show the reality of what you're doing, not just the time it takes. I spent the next week implementing these suggestions while continuing to provide childcare. I created a detailed log book where I recorded exactly when the children arrived and departed. I took before and after photos of my apartment, documented every meal I prepared, and kept receipts for all child-related purchases. I recorded my work interruptions and schedule adjustments, noting exactly how many meetings I had to reschedule or attend while simultaneously watching children. I calculated the approximate cost of the child-proofing modifications I had made to my apartment. Most revealing were the conversations I had with the twins. 5-year-olds aren't known for discretion, and they innocently revealed that many of their mothers' emergencies were actually shopping trips, lunch dates with friends, spa appointments, or sometimes just time alone at home watching Netflix. During one pickup, Greg arrived instead of Rebecca. I casually mentioned how often I'd been watching the kids lately. "Yeah, it's really nice of you to help out occasionally," he said. "Rebecca says you love having them over." "It's been more than occasional lately," I replied carefully. "They're here 3 or 4 days most weeks." Greg's expression changed from grateful to confused. 3 or 4 days a week? That can't be right. Rebecca told me you watched them maybe once a week at most. This confirmed what I had suspected. Rebecca wasn't being honest with Greg about how much she was relying on me. The deception added another layer to my growing resentment. The final piece came accidentally. During one of Rebecca's pickups, I had my voice recorder app running to time how long her quick update conversations actually lasted. I forgot to stop the recording, and it captured Rebecca on the phone with her friend in the hallway outside my apartment. "No, it's fine, I can meet you for lunch tomorrow," she was saying. "Mason will take the kids. He always says yes, he's too nice to say no, and he works from home anyway, so it's not like he has real responsibilities." Hearing my sister dismiss my career and my time so casually was the final confirmation I needed. This wasn't a misunderstanding or a temporary situation. Rebecca was knowingly taking advantage of me because I had allowed it. With all my documentation gathered, I prepared for the most difficult conversation I would ever have with my sister. While finalizing my approach, I continued providing childcare but with a new level of meticulous documentation. I created a dual system, a digital log in a spreadsheet and a physical notebook I kept prominently displayed on my kitchen counter. When Rebecca dropped the kids off, I would make a show of noting the exact time and what supplies she had provided. When she texted that she would be just 15 more minutes, I would record the actual time that passed before her arrival, often 45 minutes to an hour. I photographed everything: the state of my apartment before and after visits, the elaborate fort structures I built with the twins, the educational activities I planned, the homemade baby food I prepared for Sophia. I documented diaper changes, tantrum management, conflict resolution between siblings, and the bedtime routines I'd established for overnight stays. I kept precise records of my work interruptions, including emails from colleagues asking why I hadn't responded to urgent matters and the increasingly concerned messages from Patrick about my performance. I saved text conversations with Rebecca, particularly those showing pattern, her initial time estimate: just 2 hours. My agreement, her subsequent extensions, running a little late, and the actual total time, often double or triple the original estimate. One particularly revealing text exchange happened on a Tuesday. Rebecca. Emergency. Can you take the kids for a couple hours? Dentist called with cancellation. Me. What time will you pick them up? I have a meeting at 3. Rebecca. Before 3 for sure. Thank you. When 3 o'clock came and went with no Rebecca and no response to my texts, I documented her eventual arrival at 5:45, as well as her casual excuse about running into an old friend after her appointment. I also began noticing and recording the twins' comments that inadvertently revealed the truth about Rebecca's emergencies. Mommy got her nails painted a pretty color today, Lily mentioned during an alleged doctor's appointment. We saw Mommy at the mall when we were with you last week, but she didn't see us, Jacob innocently remarked, referring to a day Rebecca had claimed to be at a parent-teacher conference. The most illuminating documentation came from tracking Rebecca's stated reasons for needing childcare versus the actual activities she engaged in. Monday, doctor appointment. Actually, shopping at Nordstrom, confirmed by credit card charge she mentioned. Wednesday, meeting with twins teacher. Actually, lunch with friends, posted on social media. Friday, quick grocery run. Actually, 4-hour spa visit, mentioned by Lily, who heard her booking the appointment. I also began documenting conversations with Greg that revealed his limited awareness of the situation. During one pickup, I intentionally mentioned having the kids again this week. Again? Didn't you just have them on Monday? He asked, confused. I've had them Monday, Wednesday, and today, I clarified. Rebecca said you only had them once this week, he replied, looking concerned. Are you sure? I showed him my log and photos from each day. His expression darkened as he realized the extent of his wife's deception. To complete my documentation, I prepared a formal comparison chart showing 1. Hours of childcare provided, $350 plus over 4 months. 2. Professional nanny rates for equivalent service, $25 to $35 per hour. 3. Total value of service provided, $8,750 to $12,250. 4. Additional services, meals, transportation, educational activities, overnight care. 5. Work impact, missed meetings, delayed projects, performance improvement plan. 6. Personal impact, cancelled plans, relationship strain, apartment modifications. The most difficult part was creating a professional-looking invoice. I didn't actually expect payment, but seeing the total amount in black and white, $9,875 for services rendered, made the reality of the situation impossible to ignore. The final catalyst came when Rebecca called with her biggest request yet. Mason, I need a huge favor. Greg and I have been invited to a medical conference in Cancun during the kids' spring break. It's a week-long trip, all expenses paid, and would be amazing for Greg's career. Could you possibly take the kids for the whole week? I know it's a lot to ask, but it would mean the world to us. This was my opportunity. I can do it, I said carefully. But we need to sit down and talk about some concerns I have first. Can you and Greg come over for dinner this Friday? Is everything okay? Rebecca asked, sounding genuinely concerned for perhaps the first time in months. We just need to establish some clear expectations, I replied neutrally. I'll make lasagna. 7 p.m. works for both of you? She agreed, and I began preparing for the most important confrontation of our adult relationship. I spent the day of our dinner meeting meticulously preparing. I cleaned my apartment to its pre-childcare state, removing all evidence of the kids except for my carefully organized documentation. I made my grandmother's lasagna recipe, set the table properly, and even put out a bottle of Greg's favorite beer. The atmosphere I wanted was serious but not hostile. This wasn't about punishment but about correction and establishing healthy boundaries going forward. Rebecca and Greg arrived precisely at 7 p.m., an unusual punctuality that suggested Rebecca sensed the importance of the conversation ahead. Dinner began pleasantly enough with casual conversation about work, the kids' latest achievements, and neighborhood news. After dinner, as we moved to the living room with coffee, I brought out my documentation folder. So, I wanted to talk about the childcare situation, I began calmly. Is there a problem? Rebecca asked. The kids love staying with you. I love them too, I assured her. But over the past few months, the amount of time I'm spending on childcare has increased dramatically, and it's having serious consequences for my work and relationship. I opened the folder and laid out the calendar showing the frequency of childcare days. In the past 4 months, I've had the kids for over 350 hours. That's nearly 90 hours per month, or about 20 hours per week. Rebecca looked surprised but not particularly concerned. Has it really been that much? I guess time flies. Greg, however, was staring at the calendar with growing alarm. This can't be right. They're with you 3 or 4 days every week? Often, yes, I confirmed. And the hours are typically longer than initially agreed upon. I showed them the log comparing stated pickup times versus actual pickup times, revealing an average of 90 minutes of unapproved extra time per visit. Rebecca shifted uncomfortably. Traffic is unpredictable. And sometimes things take longer than expected. I understand that, I said. But there's a pattern here of consistently underestimating how long you'll be gone. And many of the emergencies that require immediate childcare turn out to be social events, shopping trips, or spa appointments. Her face flushed. Have you been spying on me? No, but the twins are very chatty about their day with Mommy before coming to Uncle Mason's house. Greg's expression had darkened considerably. Rebecca, you told me Mason watched the kids occasionally when you had important appointments. You never mentioned it was multiple times every week. It's not a big deal, Rebecca said defensively. Mason works from home. He has the flexibility. This was my opening. Working from home doesn't mean I'm not working, I explained. I have meetings, deadlines, and responsibilities just like any office job. Because of the irregular and unpredictable childcare schedule, I've missed important deadlines and meetings. My boss has put me on a performance improvement plan, which means my $120,000 a year job is now at risk. I showed them the emails from Patrick and the performance improvement plan documentation. Greg looked increasingly uncomfortable, while Rebecca's defensive posture intensified. Additionally, I continued, the constant last-minute requests and extended hours have put serious strain on my relationship with Taylor. We've had to cancel multiple date nights and even our anniversary trip because of childcare emergencies. I said I was sorry about your trip. Rebecca interjected. But that was a real emergency. Greg had to go to that retreat. Greg looked confused. What retreat? An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. The crisis management retreat at the hospital, Rebecca said quickly. 3 weekends ago. Rebecca, I was at a couple's spa weekend that you planned as a surprise, Greg said slowly. There was no hospital retreat. The look they exchanged spoke volumes. I decided to move the conversation forward before it devolved into a marital dispute. The point is, I continued, I've essentially been providing professional-level childcare without any recognition of the value of that service. In our area, professional care for 2 5-year-olds and an infant ranges from $25 to $35 per hour, with higher rates for last-minute requests, overnight care, and weekends. I placed the professionally formatted invoice on the coffee table. At the lowest market rate, the childcare I've provided over the past 4 months is valued at $9,875. Rebecca's eyes widened at the figure. You're charging us for watching your own nieces and nephew? That's ridiculous. Family helps family. I'm not asking for payment, I clarified. I'm illustrating the market value of what I've been providing so you understand the scale of the imposition. I love the kids and am happy to spend time with them, but the current arrangement is unsustainable. Greg picked up the invoice, studying it with a furrowed brow. Mason, I had no idea it had reached this level. Rebecca told me you watch the kids once a week at most. Rebecca's defense crumbled slightly. It's not that often. I silently slid the calendar toward her, where each childcare day was highlighted in yellow, more than half the weekdays in each month plus several weekends. Look, I said gently, I'm not trying to make anyone feel bad. But this situation has grown beyond occasional family help into something that's damaging my career, my relationship, and our sibling dynamic. I need boundaries. What kind of boundaries? Rebecca asked, her voice a mixture of defensiveness and dawning realization. First, scheduled visits planned at least 3 days in advance, except for genuine emergencies. And by emergencies, I mean hospital visits or truly unavoidable work crises, not spa appointments or shopping trips. Greg shot Rebecca a look that suggested they would be having their own conversation later. Second, firm pickup times that are respected. If you say 5 p.m., I need the kids picked up at 5 p.m., not 7 p.m. Third, I can provide childcare a maximum of once per week, for a specified duration that works with my schedule. Once a week? Rebecca exclaimed. That's nothing. What am I supposed to do the rest of the time? The same thing other parents do, I replied calmly. Hire childcare, use daycare services, arrange playdates with other parents, or adjust your own schedule. The same solutions you would use if I lived in another state or didn't exist. That's going to cost a fortune, she protested. Yes, I agreed. Professional childcare is expensive because it's valuable work that requires skill, patience, and constant attention. Work that I've been providing for free, at the expense of my own career and relationship. The room fell silent as the reality of the situation sank in. Rebecca's eyes filled with tears, whether from genuine remorse or frustration at losing her free childcare arrangement, I couldn't tell. I didn't realize, she began. I know, I said more gently. And that's partly my fault for not establishing boundaries earlier. But now you do realize, and things need to change. Greg, who had been examining my documentation silently, finally spoke. He's right, Rebecca. We've been taking advantage, whether we meant to or not. He turned to me. I'm sorry, Mason. This should never have reached this point. Rebecca's anger flared again. So you're taking his side? What about everything I do for our family? I'm with the kids all day, every day. Except when they're with Mason, Greg pointed out quietly. Which appears to be almost as often as they're with you, based on this calendar. Rebecca stood up abruptly. I can't believe you're both attacking me like this. I'm doing the best I can with 3 kids and minimal support. I understand it's hard, I said, standing as well. And I'm not refusing to help. I'm just asking for reasonable boundaries and respect for my time and career. If you really love the kids, this wouldn't be an issue, Rebecca said, gathering her purse. Real family doesn't count hours or create invoices. Real family doesn't take advantage, I countered. And loving the kids isn't the issue. I adore them. But I also need to protect my livelihood and my relationship. Rebecca headed for the door. We're leaving. Call us when you remember what family means. Greg hesitated, looking torn between following his wife and continuing the conversation. I'm sorry, he said quietly. Give her some time to process. This is a shock. After they left, I sat alone in my apartment, second-guessing my approach. Had I been too harsh? Too businesslike? Should I have focused more on emotional appeals rather than cold financial calculations? But deep down, I knew I had done the right thing. For too long, I had enabled Rebecca's behavior by silently accepting ever-increasing impositions. Something had to change, and clear boundaries backed by objective data were the most effective approach. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. It was Greg. Rebecca's still upset, he said, but I wanted you to know I understand where you're coming from. I had no idea things had gotten this out of hand. We'll figure out a better childcare solution. I'm not saying I won't help at all, I clarified. I love spending time with the kids. I just need predictability and respect. Understood, he replied. Give Rebecca a few days to cool down, and then maybe we can talk again about what a reasonable arrangement might look like. After hanging up, I felt a strange mixture of guilt, relief, and apprehension. The confrontation had gone both better and worse than expected. The truth was out, but the relationship damage might take time to repair. I texted Taylor to update her on what had happened. Her response was immediate and supportive. I'm proud of you. This was long overdue. Want me to come over? For the first time in months, I could say yes to a spontaneous evening with my girlfriend without checking if Rebecca needed me for childcare. It was a small victory, but it felt significant. True to Greg's prediction, Rebecca maintained radio silence for nearly 2 weeks. She didn't call, text, or ask for childcare. Our parents called, concerned about the sudden rift between us, having heard Rebecca's version of events. She says you're refusing to help with the kids anymore, my mother said worriedly. That doesn't sound like you, Mason. I explained the situation calmly, sharing some of my documentation with them. Their reaction evolved from initial defensiveness of Rebecca to stunned realization. I had no idea it had gotten this bad, my father admitted. We raised you both to help family, but this goes beyond reasonable help. We'll talk to her, my mother promised. Not to take sides, but to help her understand your perspective. Meanwhile, the absence of childcare duties had an immediate positive impact on my life. I focused intensely on my work, making significant progress on the authentication system. Patrick noticed the improvement. Whatever was going on in your personal life seems to be resolved, he commented during our weekly check-in. Your code submissions have been excellent, and you haven't missed a meeting in 2 weeks. Taylor and I enjoyed uninterrupted time together, rebuilding the connection that had been strained by months of last-minute cancellations and distracted dates. We were finally able to reschedule our anniversary getaway for the following month. On day 15 of the silence, Greg called. Rebecca's ready to talk, he said. Could we meet somewhere neutral? Maybe that coffee shop near the park? We arranged to meet the following day. I arrived early, selecting a quiet corner table away from the main crowd. Greg and Rebecca arrived precisely on time, Rebecca looking simultaneously defiant and uncomfortable. After ordering drinks, Greg opened the conversation. We've been doing a lot of talking these past 2 weeks. And some research. Rebecca nodded reluctantly. I checked the rates for nannies and daycare centers, she admitted. You were right about the costs. It's substantial. We've made some changes, Greg continued. I've adjusted my work schedule to be home by 5 p.m. 3 days a week, non-negotiable. We've hired a part-time nanny for 2 afternoons a week, and we've enrolled the twins in an after-school program the other days. Rebecca finally met my eyes directly. I'm sorry, Mason. I didn't realize how much I was asking of you. Or maybe I did but didn't want to admit it because we needed the help so badly. Her apology seemed genuine, if still somewhat reluctant. I still think family should help family, she added, but I understand now that I was taking advantage of your generosity. I appreciate that, I said sincerely. And I meant what I said before. I'm not refusing to help. I love spending time with the kids. I just need structure and boundaries. We developed a new arrangement. I would take the kids one afternoon each week, scheduled in advance, from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. This would give Rebecca a regular break she could count on, while giving me predictability I could work around. What about compensation? Greg asked. We can't pay professional rates, but we should recognize the value of your time. I considered this. I don't want money, I decided. But I would appreciate genuine gratitude and respect for the arranged times. No more last-minute extensions or dropping the kids off early without asking. Rebecca nodded solemnly. Agreed. And I'll make sure the kids always have everything they need when they come over. Also, I added, I'd like honesty about why you need childcare. If you want a spa day or lunch with friends, just say so. I'm more likely to help if I'm not being manipulated with fake emergencies. Rebecca had the grace to look embarrassed. That's fair. As we finished our coffee, the tension gradually dissipated. Rebecca even smiled genuinely when I showed her a recent photo of Sophia I'd kept on my phone. "They really do love being with you," she said softly. "Jacob asked just yesterday when they could go to Uncle Mason's house again." "I miss them too," I admitted. "Let's start our new arrangement this Thursday." That Thursday marked the beginning of our reformed relationship. Rebecca dropped the kids off exactly at 3 p.m., with all their necessary supplies neatly packed and labeled. We had a wonderful afternoon building a model solar system for Jacob's science project, creating watercolor paintings with Lily, and introducing Sophia to the concept of stacking blocks, only to watch her gleefully knock them down. At precisely 7 p.m., Rebecca arrived for pickup. "How did it go?" she asked, seeming genuinely interested rather than merely performing the expected social nicety. "Great," I answered honestly. "We had a blast." "Thank you," she said, and I could tell she meant it. "This really helped me get some things done today." The new arrangement continued successfully over the following months. I enjoyed my regular time with the kids without the stress of unpredictability or resentment. Rebecca respected the boundaries we'd established, always providing adequate notice if changes were needed, and never extending agreed-upon times without explicit permission. My work performance returned to its previous excellent standard. I completed the authentication system on time, earning praise from Patrick and the client. The performance improvement plan was concluded successfully, and I even received a modest raise during my annual review. Taylor and I finally took our rescheduled anniversary trip, enjoying 3 uninterrupted days of hiking, stargazing, and reconnecting. Our relationship strengthened through the experience of setting boundaries together, with Taylor commenting that she admired how I'd handled the situation. "You stood up for yourself without being cruel," she observed. "That's a hard balance to strike with family." Perhaps most surprisingly, my relationship with Rebecca gradually improved. Without the constant undercurrent of resentment and exploitation, we were able to enjoy each other's company again. She began showing appreciation in small but meaningful ways, texting to thank me after each visit, occasionally bringing dinner when picking up the kids, and even offering to watch my apartment when Taylor and I went on vacation. 6 months after our confrontation, Rebecca invited me over for a family dinner. As we sat in their backyard watching the kids play, she brought up our previous conflict. "I've been meaning to tell you," she said quietly. "That invoice you made really changed my perspective. Not just about childcare, but about how I value other people's time and expertise." "How so?" I asked, curious. "I realized I'd been doing the same thing to my friends. Asking for quick favors that weren't quick, expecting free help because we were friends. I've started being more conscious of what I'm really asking for and making sure to show proper appreciation." Greg joined the conversation. "Our whole family dynamic is healthier now. Rebecca and I communicate better about schedules and responsibilities. The kids have more structure and consistency. Even our marriage has improved. Looking at my nieces and nephew playing happily in the yard, I felt a profound sense of satisfaction. Standing up for myself hadn't just improved my life, it had ultimately benefited everyone involved." "Uncle Mason," Lily called. "Watch me do a cartwheel." I applauded her wobbly but enthusiastic attempt, grateful that I could now fully enjoy these moments without underlying resentment. The experience taught me that true family support isn't about endless sacrifice or martyrdom. It's about sustainable help offered freely within healthy boundaries. By showing Rebecca exactly how expensive her free childcare really was, I hadn't just protected my career and relationship, I'd actually strengthened our family bonds through honesty and mutual respect. Have you ever had to establish boundaries with family members who were taking advantage? Drop a comment below sharing your experience and how you handled it. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more real-life family stories. Share this video with someone who might be struggling with similar boundary issues. Sometimes we all need permission to prioritize our own well-being. Thank you for watching, and remember, healthy relationships require both generosity and boundaries.